For Comedy Hype News, I'm Symphony Thompson. From 2005 to 2010, Aaron McGruder turned his nationally syndicated comic strip into a critically acclaimed animated television series that depicted every aspect of Black culture. With characters like the Freeman and Dubois families and Uncle Ruckus, the Boondocks is undeniably on the Mount Rushmore of Black satires, challenged only by Chappelle's Show, Atlanta, and In Living Color. In an interview with Charlie Rose, McGruder explains the Boondocks is a racial, social, political satire about a handful of African-American kids transported to the suburbs, who have to deal with their surroundings and deal with each other. It plays out as an explanation of the American racial dynamic, both interracial and intraracial. It's genuinely refreshing that McGruder acknowledges his work that way because the intraracial commentary is the reason Black people gravitate towards the show in overwhelming numbers. McGruder's genius lies in the fact that he creates characters that are the acme of distinct parts of the Black American psyche. For example, the R. Kelly episode explores the idea of authentic Blackness beautifully through model minority Tom Dubois, a local prosecutor tasked with convicting the singer for sexual assaulting an underage girl. Tom is the typical well-spoken token that's not like the others because he went to a prestigious PWI, moved to the suburbs, and married a white woman. For reference, just imagine a straight Don Lemon as a cartoon. As the episode progresses, R. Kelly's defense attorney, who is white, repeatedly invokes the race card, insinuating the trial is a political witch hunt to incarcerate an influential Black man. The lawyer's argument was that R. Kelly may have peed on a 14-year-old girl, but at least he didn't flee the suburbs and forget where he came from. After all, the victim is Black, and he has an NAACP Image Award nomination to his name. What else does Tom have to do to prove his authenticity besides having a white wife and mixed child? McGruder did something subtle in the way he wrote Tom. In a sense, his entire persona can be explained through his name. Tom shares his last name with W.E.B. Dubois, whose most notable intellectual contribution is the idea of the talented 10th. To Du Bois, the top 10% of Black Americans should be a model to the wrenched underclass as an antidote to their backwardness. Using that framework, Tom is the perfect representative of the talented 10th. He is a financially secure Princeton graduate and district attorney, fully accepted by white society. But what good are those external accolades if your spirit is weak? It's no coincidence that a man who represents a modern-day Uncle Tom is himself named Tom. He is the quintessential Black suburbanite every Black person knows. McGruder displays this in a mockumentary episode, It's the Black President Huey Freeman, when Tom's wife, Sarah, becomes obsessed with Obama because he's smart, tall, charming, strong, and fit.
Just like your hubby?
This isn't about you, sweetie.
That scene is punctuated by the interviewer's comments on the couple's peculiar dynamic when he says, "It is always obvious when a couple hasn't engaged in normal marital relations for some time. And it only gets worse for Tom. By the end of the episode, it's revealed that Sarah slept with Obama while she was in DC for the inauguration. Sarah is even more subtle than Tom in many ways. She's a symbol of the reality that well-meaning white liberals are not the allies they portray themselves to be. And McGruder uses that reality to personify Americans' irrational fear of miscegenation through the Dubois family. In Stinkmeaner Strikes Back, Stinkmeaner inhabits Tom's body. In one instance, Stinkmeaner takes over when Tom returns home from work, hugs his wife, and declares,
"Oh yeah, I think I want to have sexual relations."
Tom, what's gotten into you?
Same thing that's about to get into you.
The brilliance in this scene is McGruder's ability to plainly show that even woke white women pathologically fetishize Black masculinity. Sarah's not put off by the fact that her Ivy League educated husband has suddenly become a vulgar thug. Instead, she relishes the opportunity to live out a taboo sexual fantasy. As thorough as McGruder's characters are, the Boondocks was not immune to criticism. Daily Press columnist Mike Holtzman wrote, "The racial element of the theme touches the same exposed nerve as comedian Bill Cosby's controversial comments about hip-hop culture and low expectations." Holtzclaw is right to a degree. Some viewers think of Riley as just another representation of ignorant Black youth acting up on screen. They felt, with no sense of irony, that a suburban second grader is everything Black people work so hard not to portray in the media. And for McGruder to contribute to the media portrayal is unforgivable.
It ain't us, it's the media. The media has distorted our image to make us look bad. Why must you come down on us like that, brother? It ain't us, it's the media.
In fact, conservative pundit Larry Elder resented the show and characters like Riley for being childish, mean-spirited, and ill-informed. but Magruder addressed such criticism in 1999 when the Boondocks was just a comic strip. He said, "Riley is a young child who has bought into the popular black culture, and popular black culture is filled with images of violence and glorification of crime. I don't think that anyone can really refute that. This strip is meant to illustrate how silly it can be to buy into something like that and try to be something you're not. That's why, as brash as Riley may be, his morality is never in question. He spends his entire time during smoking with cigarettes trying to escape a friendship with Milton Tayshaun, a character based on Latarian Milton. Riley wants nothing more than to be an authentic street kid, but when that life becomes too much, he's willing to quit because he knows that's not who he really is." Uncle Ruckus is created in much the same way. The sheer absurdity of his appearance and point of view create a surreal depiction of one of the darkest aspects of Black American psychology in the same way Riley's youth and privilege do not match his sensibility. Ruckus is meant to be Sambo with a voice. The idea of the subservient, groveling Negro at the feet of white society is not a new concept, but Magruder revolutionizes the character by developing him. The simple fact that Ruckus is an essential reoccurring character moves him well beyond being just a minstrel show, albeit with an attitude that's equal parts Clayton Bigsby and Stepin Fetchit. Ruckus repeatedly refers to Riley and Huey as darkies and gorilla chimps unworthy of protection in the Booty Warrior, while claiming the beautiful white children are valuable enough to be rescued. In effect, Ruckus is the personification of the internalized racism that is present to varying degrees in many Black people. It's sad, but he actually believes what white people say about him.
Well, I got ray vitiligo. Every year my skin just seemed to get blacker and darker and blacker and then more darker. It's the opposite of what Michael Jackson got.
Perhaps the reason critics like Larry Elder take such exception with the show is because Ruckus reminds them of themselves, in the sense that Black conservatives are often caricatured as people who lack the courage to confront America on its objectable racist past. Instead, they prefer to play the role designated to them in an attempt to be accepted by the oppressor on their terms, rather than being righteous in the struggle for freedom. For that reason, it's unexpected that Ruckus's best friend in the show is Huey and Riley's grandfather, Robert Friedman, the quintessential old school Black parent. He's dismissive and violent towards his grandchildren, blindly supports Obama, and has a public presentation that is antithesis of who he is privately. During the It's a Black President episode, Mr. Friedman proudly proclaims that he is voting for Obama because he's going to lower his taxes. But he finds out Obama plans on raising taxes at Granddad's income level. Granddad still showed his support for Obama because he's against corporate bailouts, which he finds out isn't true as well. Granddad then gives one final reason why he's supporting Obama, but he's exposed once again.
And he's gonna get the troops out of Afghanistan, right?
Also wrong.
Then what the nigga gonna do?
We all know his reason for supporting Obama is the same as Riley, who says,
"I'm supporting Obama because he's Black."
For Mr. Freeman, how he is perceived is more important than honoring his instinct. One particular case of this is when he beats Riley for hanging out with Milton Tayshaun until he sheds a Denzel glory tear. Then graciously accepts Milton and his grandmother into his house, even though he doesn't want those people in his life or in his house. Mr. Freeman is basically the lady that screams amen the loudest from the first pew of every church service and cusses out her Waffle House waitress the same day because her coffee is too hot. And then there's Huey. To Black people, he's the voice of reason in the Boondocks. He's the highly intelligent protagonist who's interested in awareness and truth rather than debate and persuasive rhetoric. To white people, he's Fred Hampton and Malcolm X reincarnated. For that reason, much like Tom, Huey's name is in homage to the legendary Black Panther, Huey P. Newton. On the surface, Huey seems like a radical revolutionary, but he never actually attempts to violently overthrow of the status quo. His primary purpose is to provide alternative modes of thinking to establish orthodoxy. Huey does this in the white world when his teacher, Mr. Uberwitz, asks him to direct the school's Christmas play so he can share his vision. Huey replies,
"My vision would turn your world upside down, tear us under your illusions, and send the sanctuary of your own ignorance crashing down around you."
What he means by that is that he wants to tell the truth about Christmas, the fact that it's a pagan Roman holiday cooped by Christians. Huey rebukes the Black world with just as much passion in a speech following R. Kelly's acquittal.
Yes, the government conspires to put a lot of innocent Black men in jail on fallacious charges. but R. Kelly is not one of those men.
Even the recurring auxiliary characters are powerful critics of American society. The Onslers are frank commentary on the issues of inherited health, aristocracy, and classism. Ed Onstler III and Jen Rumney were based off real-life political figures George W. Bush and Donald Rumsfeld. The W in Onstler's name was a reference to George W. Bush's nickname, while Rumney is similar to Rumsfeld. The first episode of the series literally has Ed Onstler III begging Riley to shoot him in the chest with a shotgun so he can test his bulletproof vest. And the episode ends with Onstler Sr. having to say nothing except, in 30 years, that boy will be president of the United States, and he'll still be an idiot. It's hard not to see the connection to the then President George W. Bush or current President Donald Trump. And rapper Thugnificent is described as a professional buffoon for not acting with some God sense. In conclusion, all of the characters in the Boondocks represent some sort of character archetype and depiction in the Black community. Whether it's the older Black man stuck in his ways, or the impressible youth, the Uncle Tom, or the Black radical, the Boondocks covers it all unapologetically. Regardless of color, the Boondocks forces you to take a look at your own outlook when it comes to race relations in America. Stay up to date with the latest news and comedy by subscribing here to our YouTube channel and follow Comedy Hype across all social media. For Comedy Hype News, I'm Symphony Thompson.